2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
Trustee LeKind.
Here.
Trustee Romanello.
Here.
Trustee Shaning.
Here.
Trustee Stevens.
Here.
Okay, before us we have a consent agenda. Is there any modifications to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Shaning.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee LeKind.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
Okay, first item on the agenda. First item includes some public hearing and some ordinance and an ordinance and a resolution. I want to bring up to the board that last time we suspended the rule for quasi judicial. We had done a policy that board members needed to be in person to vote quasi judicial, but we have found it has since become commonplace. So I would like to suspend the rule so that our online attendees participate in the ordinances before us tonight.
Agreed.
Could we also get rid of the rule in the future?
We should discuss how to modify that policy in one of our next meetings or the first of the year.
Is that a statutory rule or is
No,
just?
it's a policy we created.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
if the board's in agreement, we'll suspend the rule and we will ask Mr. Rivera to bring some modifications to that policy the beginning of January.
For doing that, set forth a policy whereby board members who had to be present in this room in order to vote on quasi judicial matters. Is that correct?
Correct.
And now the direction to me is to basically vacate that rule and make it such that however a board member participate or attends the meeting, they are allowed to vote.
Correct.
Okay.
So that rule is now suspended for this meeting. That takes us to item 3, Higbee Road annexation. Ms. Harrington, will we be hearing all three, item A, B, and C as one presentation?
Good evening, Mayor, trustee members. For the record, Megan Harrington, Planning Director. Yes, sir. All three items are related to a public hearing for the Higbee Road annexation.
Okay. A reminder to the board, even though we will be hearing one presentation, we will be voting on 3 different items. Public hearing for resolution number 60/2021. Ms. Harrington.
Right, good evening. Again, this is a request for the Board of Trustees to consider annexation of an area known as Higbee Road. The area to be annexed is starting from the west at Jackson Creek Parkway, traveling east to the eastern edge of the town boundaries, which is south of Higbee Road. It's approximately 2.3 miles. At the Board of Trustees meeting on October 4th, when we asked that you set a hearing, which is set for today, the board had a number of questions related to the ultimate design of Higbee Road. And we do have a Tri-View engineer here this evening. If you request, he will show you that planned overall design. However, before we get to that, I do want to go through some of the annexation processes related to state statute. The petition was filed by El Paso County, and again on October 4th, staff brought forward a resolution to set the hearing. That resolution also requested that staff post and notice per state statute, and those requirements have been met. The petition meets the required 1/6 contiguity. And state statute also states the governing body shall hold a hearing determining and finding whether the area proposed to be annexed meets the applicable requirements of state statute. So that's per the hearing tonight. The right-of-way is currently owned and maintained by El Paso County. Future improvements to Higbee Road will be completed by TriView. TriView has a design engineer that has designed a cross-section for Higbee Road and will be leading the construction efforts in partnership with the developers that are adjacent to Higbee Road. There are two major developers. One development is the Jackson Creek 3 through 6 development, and the other being Home Place Ranch. Both of those developers have a contribution, their fair share of the upgrades needed for Higbee Road. And TriView is going to work with those developers in order to determine what that fair share is. So often the fair share can be payment of cost to construction, or it can actually be construction of the improvements themselves. In this case, in order to have a more coordinated approach to the design of Higbee Road, TriView is taking that lead and working with those developers for a cost estimate of their share. A public improvement agreement with the town will still apply to the developers that basically states all of the public infrastructure needs per the development, and in this case we'll reference agreements with TriView. Along with the annexation is a request for inclusion of the right-of-way into the TriView Metro District. Because with annexation, the right-of-way will be within the town boundaries, it also then needs to be within the district boundaries, and their process for that is inclusion. The district will be responsible for the road design, construction, overall maintenance, and operation per the 1987 IGA. And with that, just to marry up and fix those boundaries is a request for inclusion. And again, I'm not that familiar with the district inclusion process, but TriView is here tonight. Just to ensure that the process flows smoothly, there is language in the ordinance related to when the annexation will become final. The property shall become part of the town of Monument upon recordation with El Paso County Clerk and Recorder of the ordinance and the map. That ensures that staff can sit on the documentation and wait for the inclusion paperwork to be completed, and we'll record all of that together. The board is required to make certain findings of fact and conclusion of law per state statute 3112, 104, and 105. Those are listed on your screen. That the annexation has 1/6 contiguity, a community of interest exists, and does not extend the municipal boundary more than 3 miles. And then the 3 others there you see on the screen that don't necessarily relate that well to this annexation. But those are the findings that are within that resolution about the findings of fact and conclusions of law. And then staff is recommending approval of the resolution for the findings of fact, the annexation ordinance, and then a resolution authorizing the inclusion agreement and the petition. And again, El Paso County is here as well as TriView to discuss the Higbee Road and what that design will look like. And I'm here to answer any questions as well.
Any questions for Megan, Ms. Harrington at this time?
I have a question, please. Ms.
Go ahead.
Harrington, do we have a copy of that 1987 IGA?
Trustee Clark, there is not one in your packet related to this item. However, I know that that is available, and I'm sure that we can get you a copy of that.
That'd be great if I could read through that real quickly before voting.
Okay, I will email that to you, or try to find that and email that to you as soon as I can.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the board?
Is it a requirement that we go through the inclusion?
It is not a requirement of the annexation. However, it is a requirement of TriView. If they are to take on construction, operation, and maintenance of Higbee Road, the road does need to be within their district. If it is not included in the district, then the roadway would be a responsibility of the town of Monument. as I understand it.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions from the board at this time. Ms. Irvine, would you like to add anything to this conversation?
Thank you, Mayor Wilson, Board of Trustees. My name is Jennifer Irvin. I'm the county engineer, and this application has been submitted to the town of Monument on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. They are the applicant, and I think Megan's done a great job in presenting the application. I don't have anything of substance to add. I just would want to say that this is a collaborative effort between your staff here at the Town of Monument, the Board of County Commissioners, and then my staff, and then also Triview Metro District. And we just really appreciate the great working relationship that we have with all those entities. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Irvine before we continue?
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for your cooperation as well. I remember this started 2 years ago and we were having difficulty getting roads to Higbee because of some snafu with the county. So I appreciate you working with us in this.
Okay. Mr. McGrady.
Council. My name is Jim McGrady. I'm the district manager for Triview Metropolitan District. It has been a long go. It's closer to 3 years actually, but it's been a long. But it's been. This is a good thing. I think we have.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Mr. McGrady.
Okay, we have the ability to not only maintain the road, but we also have the ability to work with the developers. We've already struck one agreement with Creekside Development for the funding of the portion of roadway that's adjacent to their property. So that's Jackson Creeks 3 through 6. So they've already paid us a large sum of money. We have that in an escrow account ready to go based upon the inclusion of this roadway. So with that said, I would encourage everybody to not only annex this road, which we've been working on for a very long time. Triview's been leading the charge on that. We paid for the entire annexation survey, and we've also been a co-funding partner for the design of Higbee Road. So we've partnered with Creekside Development, and we also partnered with Home Place Ranch to pay for some of the design work that's been done up to this point in time. Next steps would be inclusion. And then once that's done, then we will be commencing final design of the road, putting it out to bid and trying to get it built, hopefully in the next year or so. Because there's a lot of dirt being moved out there, so our timing is good. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McGrady?
Yeah, our board has always been sensitive to unfunded mandates coming down from the state. So I want to make sure that that this is something that it sounds like you're very positive on this. And I know you're taking over it, which means there's going to be a huge cost involved for your group.
I think that for the most part, the improvements will be funded by the developers. And then going forward, you know, we do fund these types of our operations are funded by that share back with the town of Monument. That 1987 agreement calls for half sharing the sales tax. That's where we get the money to do our maintenance. And we're hopeful that, you know, we'll continue to do well on our sales tax. And if that's the case, then we'll be in fine shape.
Thank you, Mr. McGrady. Okay, this is a public hearing item. Anybody wishing to speak on resolution number 60, 2021, ordinance number 37, 2021, or resolution 61, 2021, Would anybody like to speak on those items? Mr. Kimple?
Ken Kimple, 16151 St. Lawrence Way. In regard, I didn't have the opportunity to, thank you for that, this picture right here. I didn't have an opportunity to read over the whole project online. There was a mix-up in the folders. I think we have that corrected now. So the one thing that I would ask about this, and I don't know if it was discussed or if it was planned, with the expansion of Higbee Road, with the increase of homes on the north and south side of Higbee Road, I go back into a safety consideration. There is a small, several hundred feet of paved road west of Higbee to the grass area prior to I-25. Correct me if I'm wrong, but many years ago, that was potentially going to be an on-ramp for I-25. What I'm asking, because of the increase in volume of homes, and we have all the parties here that could take a look at this or collaborate on this, would there be an opportunity to also expand that, but have it barricaded by key and have the fire department, the monument police, and the state patrol have access to that in case there is a mass evacuation and everyone bottlenecking down Jackson Creek to get onto Baptist, to get onto 25 or 105. Residents close to this area would be able to go straight down Higbee, get on I-25. Less than 200 feet north on I-25 is an opening in the center line guardrail that's still south of the YMCA, where that would provide access to the vehicles that are evacuating to either proceed northbound or southbound as needed if there was a mass evacuation instead of all the bottlenecking. It's just another avenue to help expedite people evacuating the area. I'm not sure if that was considered or not. I'm just asking if it would be something to be considered, to be added onto. I think that would be a prudent thing for the safety of the residents. With the volume of homes that are being built north of Jackson Creek Parkway on the south and north side of Higbee Road. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on these three items? Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online at this time? Okay, sir.
Hi, I'm John Bender. I live on Saber Creek, which is, you guys can't see this, but right here, adjacent to the Home Place Ranch development. And I would like to ask, maybe not as part of the Higbee Road annexation, but I would like to ask the board members as representatives and looking out for the citizens of the people of the town of Monument to consider access from Home Place Ranch onto Jackson Creek Parkway. Right now, what has been proposed and apparently agreed to is to go between two houses in my development, use a narrow utility corridor and put in a gravel road for an emergency exit. And what they really need is not to go between two houses with a gravel road into an existing development, but rather to come out and connect straight west right by the grade school to Jackson Creek Parkway. Since the annexation includes benefits to advance the project for Home Place Ranch, that's why I thought I would bring this up tonight for consideration. If that hasn't been considered in the past, I would like to ask that to be considered. Any questions? If you haven't seen where I'm talking about, they're going to have to move utilities, mature trees, and existing drainage to squeeze an emergency access road between two houses in my development. And I don't think that's the right way to do business. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on one of these three items? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for further discussion on these items.
I'd like to say that I would be willing to consider Mr. Kimple's request and the other gentleman's request, but I would like to know from all those participating what the additional cost would be to have those things considered and input if necessary.
I believe myself and Mr. Foreman have been working with CDOT on some other projects lately. I believe we could include asking them if the emergency use on-ramp is feasible. If Mr. Foreman will make a note of that.
Definitely.
The what? And then the other item think we would have to look into. I'm not real sure how that item works. Staff have any feedback on that?
Yes, Megan Harrington, town staff. I believe the emergency access that the gentleman is speaking of is related to an a previously approved final site plan for the development. That while I am not familiar, I would have to look at the plans, obviously includes an emergency access. We can certainly, from a staff perspective, look at that. But if it is part of an approved final site plan, it is something that was previously approved by the Board of Trustees through staff, and it would depend on where it's at in overall development. All of that said, staff is happy to look at it, determine where that is in the process, and if it is truly part of that final site plan. And if it is approved, it would be up to the developer to make changes or modifications to that approved plan.
Okay. And then I'd also like to remind the board that those two items are not directly part of these resolutions and ordinance. There are no other questions. I'll look for a motion on resolution number 60, 2021.
I move to approve Resolution 60, 2021, a resolution adopting findings of fact and conclusions of law concerning the annexation of the town of Monument in an area known as Higbee Road annexation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
I just want to confirm we're doing this one resolution at a, or excuse me, one resolution at a time, or are we voting for all three?
Right now,
Yes.
we are voting simply on resolution number 60, 2021.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mrs. Hogan. My vote is yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. That motion passes 7-0. Ordinance number 37, 2021, an ordinance annexing to the town of Monument the property known as Higbee annexation. Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 37, 2021, an ordinance annexing to the town of Monument the property known as the Higbee Road annexation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. That motion passes, that ordinance passes 7-0. Item number C, resolution number 61, 2021, a resolution authorizing the execution of the inclusion agreement and petition for inclusion for the property known as Higbee Road annexation into the Tribeview Metropolitan District. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion adopting resolution number 61, 2021, a resolution authorizing the execution of the inclusion agreement and petition for the inclusion of the property known as Higbee Road annexation into the Triview Metro District.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind.
No.
That motion passes 6-1. Item number 4, ordinance. Ordinance A, an ordinance number 38, 2021, an ordinance adopting a restated budget for the purpose set forth below for the town of Monument. Ms. Fox.
Mayor, if I could interrupt a little bit. I failed to do something last week when I was making the budget presentation, and that was to introduce our new finance director, Ms. Teresa Fox. Teresa, if you'll stand up. Teresa comes to us with a lot of years of experience. She's done an amazing job. She's been working with Rosa and her staff to get us to where we are today. And I felt like that it was very prudent to turn this over to her and have her make the budget presentation as where we are today.
Thank you and welcome, Ms. Fox. And go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Mayor and council, you have before you an ordinance. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
you're fine.
You have before you an ordinance for 38-2021. Being taken care of. Okay. And basically, it's the adoption of the 2021 restated budget ordinances. Previously, the background is in 2021. The restated budget is being presented today because it is necessary for several reasons. One is that during your initial budget period, you've received several grants, including State DOT Overlay Grant and the American Rescue Plan Act funding. In addition, therefore, you've had these revenues and corresponding expenses, which were not included in your initial budget. We also are aware that you've received several other items, including you purchased a property located at 259 Beacon Light Road, which was not included in the original budget. And finally, the town also set up a parks fee fund. And so as per the town code requirements, and so you do need to include that in your restatement. So at this time, there are no expenses against that particular fee. However, it is now there and available to use, which will be part of the 2022 budget, which we'll talk about later. The information has been provided. We've gone through, and so what we do have here is the first ordinance is to approve the restated budget and have a resolution so that it gives the current and expected fund balances for each fund, as well as the projected revenues and expenses. This ordinance 39-2021 appropriates the expenses approved for those funds because you must have a balanced budget. And I respectfully request the Board of Trustees approve the ordinance 38-2021 to adopt the 2021 restated budget. You will see in your packet the detailed information which you've previously reviewed. And so I just wanted to kind of make that brief, but do you have any questions?
Okay. You are considering that your presentation for ordinance 38 and number 39?
38-2021, I can move on to 39, and basically that is the appropriation of into the appropriate funds. So basically you're required to have two separate ordinances.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. Let's see, when we did the purchase of the building on Beacon Light Road, that came out of the 2A water fund, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, I'm noticing that the water enterprise fund was showing $13 million in expenses with a $5 million deficit. And did I misread that? Here on page is this?
Should be page 2.
Yeah, it's the second page. So what can you share with us what the lion's share of that $13 million expense was? And first I thought it was the money that we got from the bond sale, but I don't show any revenue, or maybe it doesn't show revenue. I just need some clarification on that.
Where's Tom at? There he is. Tom, do you know what that is on there?
Fund, here we go.
Thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Thornish is working on that. Do we have any other questions on the restate?
I just wanted to say thank you to Trustee Stevens for bringing that issue up. That was an issue I am also having with that number.
Okay, this is a public both of these are public hearing items. I will open it up for public comment. So anyone who would like to speak from the public on ordinance number 38, 2021 or 39, 2021. Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone online that would like to speak on these items? Okay. Do we have anyone in person that would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Thornish.
Looking at the detail breakout on that, it looks like that was under capital outlay, which looks like it's related to the COP bonds. If you remember when we had the $22 million in bonds, we broke that out by project so that we could get it all spent before November of 23. So we budgeted projects, but haven't spent that much yet just because the projects have run into delays and so on. But if you look on the budget, it shows a breakout of 9.745 million. Under a capital outlay. So under capital outlay, that's the only place where we're doing the large scale water projects. That's where that 13 million is. If you add up all the line items there, which is your salaries, your maintenance, your utilities, the biggest chunk of that by far is the capital outlay, and then the debt service is the payment for the COP bond.
Okay,
So,
I'm just going to say the revenue that we got, the $22 million that we got, how are we recording that?
And just so you know, Mr. Thornish, we do not have a 2020 budget or 2021 budget in front of us. So
Okay.
we just have the changes in the funds as an ordinance and then the appropriation of those funds for 2021.
Right. I know the whole revenues and expenditures are related to the bond funds. I'm just trying to find which line item where the bond proceeds got entered into. So.
Yeah, it looks like this is kind of a balance sheet rather than an income and an expense. So I would expect that somewhere if we receive the $22 million in the funding from the bonds, I would expect that to be recorded somewhere, maybe not as revenue, but as a liability of, something along those lines. I'm not seeing that. That's what's concerning me.
I think I'm going to have to get with Rosa. Just text her. I think we're going to have to get with Rosa and get you that answer tomorrow. I'm probably not going to have that for you today. Okay. But I'll be able to get hold of her. I don't think our staff is available to answer that question right now.
Anyone hear me?
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I was having a lot of trouble getting through. I'd like to table this vote until such time I can look at those figures concerning the 2A fund and the bond funds. I'd like to table until such time that we can have a chance to review that material.
What's the effect of that, Ms. Fox, if we table this tonight? We presented this last week also, or 2 weeks ago. We presented this to you.
There's a potential we will have to have a session on December 20th then.
Okay.
In order to meet the state requirement.
I would still like to see those numbers before I vote on this.
And this is the exact same that we looked at 2 weeks ago, correct?
It is.
Okay.
Mayor Wilson, why would we need a session on December 20th when we still have a meeting December 6th coming up?
That's a good question.
Ms. Fox.
Could it be brought up on December 6th?
We can bring this up on the 6th, but it has to be approved on the 6th because you also have the 2022 that must be approved on the 6th.
So it would have to be approved prior to you approving the 2022 budget on the 6th.
Okay.
That makes sense. I think I feel more comfortable with that than I would passing something where we clearly don't feel comfortable that we have a handle on our numbers yet.
Okay.
So I don't want to pass something where we're not comfortable explaining what's going on.
Do we have a motion to postpone this item till the next meeting?
I'll make a motion to postpone till the next meeting this item.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan? Postponing this item, I mean ordinance number 38, 2021 and ordinance number 39, 2021.
Was 39 appropriates the sums that we're not comfortable with
Correct.
at this point. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. The ordinances will be postponed till the next meeting. Takes us to item 5, resolution setting a time and date of the first meeting of the Home Rule Charter Commission. Ms. Hogan.
Colorado Revised Statutes 31-2064 require that the Home Rule Charter Commission hold its first meeting at a time and date set by the Board of Trustees within 20 days after the election is certified. This meeting therefore must take place between November 25th and December 14th. Due to the Thanksgiving holiday, the earliest practical opportunity to hold this meeting would be November 29th. And we've secured this facility and set a time of that meeting to take place on November 29th at 5:30. The entirety of the Home Rule Charter Commission has been notified of the proposed date and time. And we've also secured a couple of subject matter experts with the home rule process to come and meet with the group that day. So everything's set up. It just needs to be actually called by the Board of Trustees. So staff recommends approval of resolution number 62, 2021, a resolution setting the date and time of the first meeting of the Home Rule Charter Commission.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Ms. Hogan from the board?
I have a question. Ms. Hogan, if not all 9 members can show up that date, what is the ramifications of that? Any at all?
Are you asking if they aren't available, what are the ramifications? I guess I don't understand what your question is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, do all 9 members that were elected need to show up on that date?
I would assume just like any other meeting, a quorum would need to be available. No one has expressed that they aren't available. And that was sent out early last week. So we're assuming that everybody's chomping at the bit and eager to go and available.
And Ms. Hogan, I think you are correct. I think it acts as a governing body where a quorum must exist for any business to take place. but this is also kind of a welcoming and introduction, so it's not the end-all be-all meeting, correct?
Correct. It would be an opportunity for them to meet staff, and we do have another town manager from Castle Pines who's recently went through the home rule process there to kind of talk about the experience that he had. We also have Corey Hoffman, who is an attorney for many, many municipalities and is kind of an expert in the field with home rule, and he'll be there. So it would be a good opportunity, for the board, for the commissioners to come. But there's going to be many, many meetings of this commission.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Elliott, does that answer your question?
Yes, it tells me that not everybody must attend that were voted in for this charter committee, but the more the better.
Correct. Any other questions for the board?
Do we need to set the rest of the meetings, or they self-direct from the first meeting?
At that first meeting, the commission will elect a chairman and a secretary, and they will set their own schedule from all the meetings there forward. Either the chairman will set them or a majority of the commission that's required. And those meetings are open to the public as well.
Will they also be sworn in at this meeting?
They are not required to take an oath. They are not elected officials.
Mrs.
If we're
Hogan,
elected.
Mrs.
Well,
Hogan?
officials being the term. It's a commission, and they are not required to take an oath of office.
I'm sorry. So we put forth an initiative to elect 9 members representing the community to draft a charter for the town that don't have to swear an oath to protect the town.
Elected a committee.
Well, just for example, like the planning commissioners are not required to take an oath of office. It's specific to certain offices, such as a treasurer, a clerk, and a governing body, members of a governing body.
Trustee Clark, did you have a question? Okay, if there are no other questions, I will look for a
I
motion.
was in the middle of asking for a question, Mayor
Oh.
Wilson. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm having trouble with this button for some reason with mute and unmute. I
go
apologize.
ahead.
I was asking Mrs. Hogan if this is open to the public. Is it open to all the public, including the Board of Trustee members?
The board cannot participate, so I would assume it is open to the board as
Non-participant.
correct.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 62, 2021, a resolution setting the time and date for the first meeting of the Home Rule Charter Commission.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning.
Yes.
That resolution passes 7-0. Item B, resolution number 63, 2021, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument appointing an interim town manager. Mr. Foreman,
Town treasurer.
town treasurer.
I was going to say, have you told me something? Have you not told me something you need to tell me?
That's the executive session.
Was that question from Ron that bad? So, as you know, Rosa Ooms resigned as town treasurer earlier this year. She stayed on to help us through our budget process until we find a new candidate for town treasurer. We have hired Teresa Fox, as I introduced earlier, and we recommend to the board to appoint her as the interim town treasurer until a time that we will come back to the board with a recommendation to appoint her as town treasurer. Do you want me to read the resolution for you, or
No.
has everybody read it? I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
So what was the thought process behind doing it this way this time versus, I know last time we had to wait a long period, and I know there were some questions on that period, how long of a period we could wait to appoint a town treasurer. Can you give us a little background on why we went about it this way?
Yeah, I spoke with our town attorney and discussed some of the issues that we've had in the past with these type of appointed positions. And so I'd just like to be able to have 3 to 6 months to be able to evaluate our appointee and be able to come up with a better suggestion for the board on her being the permanent town treasurer. Just like to be able to evaluate her over the next 3 to 6 months.
So this gives you the ability to work with her as staff before the board has to take action, whether that be positive or negative.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? If there are none, I will look for a motion.
I'll move to pass resolution 63, 2021, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument appointing interim town treasurer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella.
Yes.
That resolution passes 7-0. Item C, resolution number 64, 2021. Resolution appointing a municipal prosecutor. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. This is a resolution appointing a municipal prosecutor. That prosecutor will be the Osmus Law Firm. The Osmus Law Firm previously served as the town's municipal prosecutor from April of 2019 to July of 2020, and then from June 2021 to the present. The Osmus Law Firm is a well-respected firm that provides almost solely municipal prosecution services to various cities and towns throughout Colorado. And this is basically a resolution permitting the formal recognition of their work in the interim basis from June of 2021 to the present, and entering into a contractual relationship with them forward going. And the contract was not available at the time of the packet deadline, but it has now been made available. The Osmus Law Firm charges $600 per session. The municipal court occurs once a month.
Okay, and this is due to the change in our in-house town attorney, correct?
Yes. So basically, this is going back to even before I started as a town attorney. The Osmus, I believe, was here before April of 2019 and providing services then, and now will resume providing services.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I have one. So this law firm is hired for the sole purposes of being prosecutor. Has nothing to do with your current role as representative for the town.
No. In fact, they had solely for the municipal prosecution function.
So prior to this town attorney did this.
Exactly. But
And
prior
so-
to that, Mr. Osmus did this.
Understand. And so is the cost for this in the new budget?
Yes, it is. It's just
I would have
fixed.
liked to have
It's
had that called out.
it's $600 a month.
600, that's it? 600 a month?
That's it.
Do we also have to provide a defense attorney for those who cannot afford one?
No, it's part of the reason why it's helpful to have specialists like the Osmus Law Firm is that they can handle that for us. In essence, the rule, generally speaking, is that if there is no potential for incarceration associated as a sanction for the law violation, then a public defender is not required. And so as a practice, jail is taken off the table as a possible sanction. So therefore, the town is relieved of its duty to provide a quote unquote public defender.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 64, 2021, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument appointing a municipal prosecutor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind.
Yes.
That resolution passes 7-0. Item number D, resolution number 65, 2021. Resolution regarding the town's commitment to public safety. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. This is a request that was given to me through Mr. Foreman. My understanding was that the intent was to lay out a policy position made known to the public now and made known to future Board of Trustees regarding the purpose and the origin of Question 2F funds. The reason why it's just a resolution and nothing more binding is that there is a principle in the law that stands for the proposition that a present council or board of trustees cannot bind future councils or trustees in legislative powers. So you can't tell future board of trustees what to do under certain circumstances, and this is one of them. So instead of providing that level of guidance, what I was instructed to do is basically set out a policy marker, a policy position, so that everyone there's a record made of the reason for the placement of Question 2F on the November 2nd ballot, and the town's position regarding the use of the funds presently and in the future. And this is basically an encouragement to future town board of trustees to contemplate and use Question 2F funds as a supplement to the police operating budget and not to use it to replace any components of the police operating budget.
Okay. And Mr. LeKind, we discussed this. I think the idea, and I think Mr. Rivera's resolution spells it out pretty good, is that we stay consistent with our general fund budget commitment to the police department and not reduce that in the future. So I think this accomplishes that. It sets the standard. Questions, comments from the board?
I'm wondering if Mr. Rivera wouldn't mind explaining that to me one more time. I can't hear him.
So the question, I believe that what I understand your question to be is why is it a resolution and nothing more definitive? And the answer to that question is basically a present council cannot bind future councils in terms of legislative priorities. And the budget determination is the kind of the primary example of a legislative priority. So you cannot, as a 2021-22 Board of Trustees, tell a 2020, 24, 25 Board of Trustee how to allocate the budget in the future. That's just bedrock law. So then the next best alternative is to set out a policy position which is what the resolution is intended to do, set out a policy position as to why the origin of Question 2F, the reason for 2F, and how you would like 2F to be used and why you passed 2F as a town and as a Board of Trustees.
So are you saying that it will make sure that there's a bottom line that's always included in the budget while this board is in its active position? But does it disallow for the increase in the budget if necessary? Does it address that question at all?
No, I'm actually, I don't think you can even bind yourselves. You certainly can control yourselves the next voting cycle and that next budget cycle. What this basically sets forth is a policy position.
Thank you so much,
It's
Mr.
essentially not a
Rivera.
binding
Appreciate your time.
document. Okay.
Additional comments from the board?
Thank you for the explanation and the drafting of this. Not quite what I think some past trustees were hoping for, but since they're no longer here, doesn't matter what they want. But thank you for putting that together. This is what we can do, is show good faith year after year to the police and all the rest of the departments that the budget should be what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee LeKind, for putting this together and bringing this forward. I appreciate your time and your effort, your help with this.
Thank you, Trustee Clark.
Is there any other questions or comments on this resolution? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution 65, 2021, a resolution regarding the town of Monuments continuing commitment to public safety.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
That resolution passes 7-0. Takes us to item 6, discussion items. 6A, board direction on 2022 budget. Mr. Foreman.
Yes, Mayor and Board of Trustees, 2 weeks ago, we presented to the board a draft budget. We reviewed everything with you on that and took questions. Some of the questions that you had for staff were about salary increases in our 457 and 401 match increases. I provided to you documents that show the incremental increases anywhere from 5% to 10% on the salary increases, with an 8% 457 match, and also a 5 to 10% incremental salary increase on another sheet with an 11% 457 match. And so I'd invite any questions that you have on these documents that are provided to the board over the last 2 weeks.
Can you briefly describe the headings under each incremental increase? I
Yeah,
understand
so
we have general fund, we have CD, water, and then we have change to reserve.
Right, so it's general fund, community development, water fund, and then that's our unreserved portion, the 14.16. And then, so that's the percentage of our reserve. And then the reserve is the actual cash amount that's in our reserve. And then as you go down, the change to reserve would be the difference in a 5% to the 6% salary increase, all the way down to a 10% increase. It shows what our unreserved portion would be, our reserve, and then our change to the reserve. And then also on the other one with the 457 match increase, it also shows the 5% salary increase all the way to the 10% salary increase with the 11% increase in the 457. So it shows the change to the reserve with a maximum change to the reserve of $178,496. That would be a 10% salary increase and an increase to 11% 457 match.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
I'd like to encourage everyone to consider bringing our staff and our employees up to speed. They have put forth enormous efforts in the past 3 years to give their best efforts to us as a town. And I certainly appreciate every single one of them, every single day. I would like to ask everyone to consider a minimum of a 10% raise.
I support the 10% raise across the board also, but at the 8% retirement level that you started and then graduate up. When I ran,
Let me make sure I understand that, because I wanted to make sure I explained that. I probably didn't explain that this week. I did 2 weeks ago. The original plan, today we're at 5.5. The original plan was to go from 5.5 to a 4.8, and then a year 2 go from a 4.8 to a 5.5 11. Year 3 to go from a 5.5 11 to a 7.14.
Correct,
on our
on the
benefit.
457 plan.
Right,
correct. What I was clarifying was, of the 2 sheets that you sent,
right.
457 base at 8, but salaries at 10.
Exactly.
That's what I was.
That's sheet number 1.
Sheet number 1. is
Exactly.
Supporting. We, in my opinion, you just got to patch this boat and quit the bleeding. It's a complete waste of time and money to keep losing and retraining people. And when I ran, there was no town manager, no town attorney, and our town treasurer was out the board. And it was a crap show. And there's no point in us going through all the work of staffing just to keep losing and recycling people. It just makes no sense at all. Just get this done up front and let's build from there. That's how I feel about it.
I agree,
I-
Trustee Romanello. I think that those are very wise words.
I agree with those sentiments, especially after seeing the updated increase breakdowns. The amounts that we're talking about are so minimal. And I think when we're talking about even from an 8% to a 10% on the 457, the change in the reserves, we're talking about $47,000, something around that. And $47,000, I think, goes a lot further with our people than it does with capital or anything else. So my inclination would be to do the max on the 10% across the board.
And let me explain this also. And let me correct. I hate to do this, but it's 11%. But also with this, not every employee. So these are maximum numbers. With every employee would be at the maximum level. So they would all have a choice to be at 5.5 and 11. So they would put in their 5.5. If any employee chooses to put in less than 5.5, then the town would not put in the 11. They would only match twice as much as the town employee decides to put in their retirement plan.
And I would also like to add to that, the town manager and I had a separate discussion about some of the employees who are either topped out or the bigger sticking point for me was the employees that may not get a raise this year because they have not been found to be up to speed merit-wise. And we talked about a process where we give those employees one last chance to come up to speed, which I know is a little bit unorthodox, but it's unprecedented that employees get a 10% raise. I mean, I've been working my whole life and I've never worked anywhere that's done that. And I would like to think that if there are employees that are underperforming, that there are reasons that we could at least just this year give it our best to try to figure out so that everybody has the opportunity to get this massive raise.
I kind of disagree with that. I think that if seeing those who merit a 10% raise this year doesn't give you enough motivation for next year, then maybe you shouldn't be on the team. That's how I see it, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly.
And I also agree with Mayor Wilson. I think that the focus should be on people that are underpaid rather than trying to use that money to compensate people that are overpaid. So I'd rather focus on bringing people that are underpaid up to par than spending money on people that have already topped out or basically they're overpaid for their position.
I would like to say that I agree with Trustee Schoenig. I think that sometimes when a person or an individual is working under extreme duress of living below the poverty level, sometimes it will stunt their motivation beyond belief. If they have the opportunity to actually have access to a living wage, there's a great possibility with the training they've received already to keep that value in the town.
And to answer some of the conversations we had, I think we could have a compromise here that might work. We do have some underperforming employees that we need to address, and we've been addressing these issues as they come up. One of the things we talked about was having that review this year, and then if they improve their performance over a 3 to 6 month period, then they would get their 10% raise at that point once they improve their performance.
As my concern, would that cost us in 6 months, and then in 9 months we're back to where we started with the performance?
Well, I can tell you that most directors and managers that work for the town of Monument are going to keep a close eye on that, and they're going to make sure that they ensure that that employee continues with a great performance for the town.
Okay.
Mr. Foreman, I like that plan. I do believe, though, that we need to, or the town needs to put in place with those employees some sort of ongoing performance measures, in order to earn and keep the raise that they will be given. As far as the underpaid employees, I do believe that we need to do a one-time catch-up period, not milk this and do slow, increases over time. I said before at the last meeting, I don't want Monument to be a town that people don't want to work at because, we don't pay people enough. I'd like to see us, to increase the morale, maintain the morale, and bring people up to the level that they should be.
And to add on to that, I think, as we talk about the, meeting halfway on underperforming employees, I don't believe that should be our focus because from the staff I've known over the years, I think we're talking about possibly one or two people
You're correct.
in all of town staff. And I think I want to make sure that we're focusing here on, like Mayor Pro Tem Elliott said, getting those who are shining and the majority of our great staff to the salary position they belong at.
I agree with you, Mayor. You're correct. This probably only, it definitely affects less than 5. And, we're not focusing on, everybody else is going to get the 10% raise. We just want the opportunity to be able to use this as a tool for creating a better environment for the town of Monument, but also creating better employees for the town of Monument, because we do want our managers and our directors to be able to correct performance.
Okay. Going back to the earlier conversation, I agree with the 10%, and I believe that for this year, I know it's not a huge difference, but I would like to stay with our initial plan of 8% increase in the 457.
I agree.
I'd also like to propose that we take the state lobbyist money and throw it into the pot, because I personally feel that money's wasted. The Democrats in the state won't listen to us. And if and the sad thing about it is if you're a Republican lobbyist out of the El Paso County, you go up there, you're going to have to donate some of that money to the Democrat Party in order to get a seat at the table. And they'll thank us for our contribution to their cause. And then they will say, we will not be pursuing your agenda. So I personally feel that spending money on the state lobbyist is a waste of money, and that money would be better spent contributing to our 457 plan or our salary increase plan.
I agree with you, Trustee Stevens. I think that's an excellent position to take.
Okay.
I agree too. Don't throw good money after bad.
I hear the sentiment on what my fellow trustees are saying, but I guess I have to disagree. Having a lobbyist that's able to be there for us full time at the Capitol and advocating for the town of Monument and several other towns, it's not like it's just a lose all game just because the Democrats control the Capitol right now. Negotiations are made every single day with legislators across the board, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. There's a lot of negotiations and a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And I would like to think that somebody who is advocating just for the town of Monument would be able to get some things done for us.
I agree with Ms. Schoening in the sense that almost every municipality has a lobbyist except for the smaller municipalities. And where is our voice at the table? Our state legislators are often wrapped up in the legislation they're working on, and we do end up with nobody up there saying, hey, the smaller community, this is how this mandate is affecting the smaller communities.
I agree with that.
Do we have any concrete evidence of what prior legislative representatives have done for the town of Monument?
We've never had a lobbyist.
So this is the first time?
This is the first time that we've considered banning with some other smaller communities to try to address this issue.
Are there specific issues that the town wants this representative to address that we've not discussed?
That would be built on the committee or a group of what the communities involved see as their biggest issues. Most likely, like when we talk about budget items, we're talking about mandates that cost our police department money, that cost our other departments money, and to not have somebody representing us to curb those costs, well, I mean, that's also throwing away money in a sense.
Well, I personally think that if our goal is unfunded mandates and addressing that, we would, that's a nonpartisan issue. And I think a group like CML would be more effective to be able to do something like that because they represent the municipalities. But if we are going with more of a conservative agenda, then I can tell you that we won't even get a seat at the table unless we throw money into the Democrat coffers. So the other option would be to hire like a Denton's up there in Denver, where they do have a Democrat lobbyist that would get a seat at the table. But I can tell you they haven't had much success when they represent like the Sheriff's Association and things like that. They've pretty much been blown off. I think the money would be better spent a year from now when we have a change in the legislature. There's a lot of hope for the next legislative session after this one. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Mr.
Yeah.
Foreman, how much money is in that line item in the budget?
$40,000. We have an agreement to work with at least one other community, and they would split that cost with us. There may be another community that would work with us also.
And I will say
I didn't hear the number, Mr. Foreman. I didn't hear the number.
$40,000.
3,000?
40.
40?
Yes,
Split
ma'am.
with another town?
Okay.
No, that would be our portion of the split would
Okay.
be 40,000.
Okay, so 80, okay. Well, that's not a big ticket item. And we haven't learned anything yet from this. Maybe this is a one-time learn.
I will say the Area Council of Governments does the same thing, and they have different objectives than just the small communities, and they've had reasonable success even under the current administration at the state.
Yeah, and
I would like to say that CML is very effective. We have an incredible group across the state, small, large, medium-sized municipalities, and they do incorporate all of our concerns, and they do consider all our input before they come up with a final draft. So I think that has been highly effective in the time I've been spending with the CML.
I would disagree with that 100%.
Well, I think
But
the
you're
issue comes
entitled to
down
your
to what we're
disagreement.
looking for. So, and that's not yet defined. So anyway, that's my opposition to it. And I think it'd be better spent bringing everybody on our staff up to par and making the focus on that than spending the money at this time.
But
Mr. Foreman, you were going to finish saying something?
Ms. Clark covered what I was going to say.
Okay.
But since we already have numbers before us, all that would do is change the amount that affects the reserves, correct?
No.
Let me make sure I understand the question. If you took the $40,000 from the lobbyist money and you put it towards the line item towards the 457 match increase, I think it was stated earlier, the difference in the change of the reserve would be about $63,000. So it would cut into that $63,000.
Right. I mean, it basically amounts to a percentage point. So in essence, we're giving a 10% increase, but it's only costing us 9% in our reserves.
Right.
So that's what I'm proposing.
I agree with Trustee Stevens.
Isn't this, we're not voting on, these are two separate issues, and I guess I don't really understand the process that we've undertaken here. Is this even a normal process? I don't think we can at the last minute say we're going to take out of the lobbyist line item that's already been written and say we'll put that in place, especially with 2F in place. I don't see how this is,
So,
it's not an either or for me.
so right now we're just giving board direction.
Right.
So if we decide to remove that line item when town staff does the final budget for us to approve, that line item will be missing. And they'll be required, if we decide that that goes towards the salary issue, then they will have it laid out to where we can see where it goes in the salary items.
I guess I understand that, but they're two separate things for me. So I couldn't give direction to move money from the lobbyist line over to the employee line, even though I want to see the max for the employees.
Technically, during this time, can't we move money anywhere we want to as the board?
This is a
Yeah.
draft budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can, there's nothing,
But we're not
But we are not.
we're not voting,
on
right.
it.
but
Just giving
we're giving direction on where we want the money to be in
Good.
what bucket.
And that's how we're going to vote on the 6th, though. is-
right.
is
I mean,
direct.
yeah.
You're giving me direction on the final budget that I will present to you on December 6th.
Yeah. And this has nothing to do with 2F either. And this is money that goes to the employees.
So how do we decide then
so-
if that's where we want it?
Well, then I think since we are divided or somewhat divided, let's go ahead. I make a motion that we move the money from the lobbyist fund into the payroll fund.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? If we need some sort of consensus.
Well, I second then.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll to move the 40,000 out of the general fund lobbyist line item to the salary increase?
And
Effort.
Mayor, let me make sure I understand this. You're not moving it to the salary increase, you're moving it to the 457
To-
match increase.
Trustee Romanello,
I'm not sure about this one. I'll say yes.
Trustee Shaning,
No.
Mayor Wilson,
No.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
I'm sorry, I know we're supposed to be voting, but how does this impact the other town that we're supposed to be splitting this with?
Good question.
And how do we communicate with them?
We bail out on them and tell them that our board decided against it.
I would have a conversation with their city manager. I think he hasn't finalized his budget either. And so I would have a conversation with him on the direction that we're going.
Okay, yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
I'm going to change my direction here and say no.
Okay, that motion passes 4-3. Mr. Foreman, you have the direction of removing the $40,000 line item for lobbying services and putting them into the 457 salary increase. Am I correct there?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Is the board all in?
We'll present to you on the 6th another sheet that will show what the effect to the reserve will be, because it'll be about a $15,000 to $20,000 difference.
Okay. And everybody on the board has the same understanding as what we just stated, correct?
Yes.
I get an understanding of what the raise is too. Did we do anything about that?
It will be the 10% salary increase with the 11% 457 increase, but the majority of that increase from 8 to 11 will be covered with that line item.
Thank you very much, Mayor Wilson. I appreciate the explanation.
Yes. Is there any closing remarks for discussion item 6A, budget? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to public comments. Public comments for items not on the agenda. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody from the public wishing to speak at this time? Mr. Kimple.
Thank you, Board. 3 quick things. First, I'd like to publicly thank the planning director. We had a meeting several weeks ago. I think it was very helpful, beneficial. I think we got on the same page with some of the questions that I had and some of the questions that she had. So thank you very much for the time. Second, for some clarification for the record, it's not that I do not like scrub oak, which is, but I'm still waiting on an answer, a resolution regarding having scrub oak cleaned up in our community on the east side along a small stretch of the split rail fence where there's overgrowth. And this is, we're just seeking to have it cleared back 5 feet from the fence. That's it, just 5 feet. We don't want it all removed, just 5 feet back to clear it for firewise protection and as a buffer. The last communications I had was with the officer. He said him and the fire marshal and a drone were over there flying it, just waiting on an answer as to if it's going to be taken care of or not. Also, still waiting confirmation of what type of road designator Glen Eagle is. Is it a major collector, commercial, or is it residential, or is it a minor residential or collector? The reason why I bring this up is because there's different ways to attack the traffic issue and speeding on that road. And that all dictates as to what type of road it is and what measures you can put in there. Lastly, bring this up again. Town of Monument Roadway Design and Technical Criteria Manual should be considered out of date. It's dated 19 April 2010. Needs to be updated. There is no design vehicle information posted, meaning what's the largest vehicles that can reasonably be anticipated to use the types of street that are designated in monument. There aren't any traffic volumes posted, meaning the threshold capacity of the daily use of the roads and for the types of street. And also, it's not clearly defined how a traffic impact study is conducted or shall be completed. I referenced the El Paso County Roadway Design and Criteria Manual for all of that information in the past, so you know. Again, what I'm trying to do is, I believe Higbee Road, and I didn't see the design plan, but I believe they're talking about having roundabouts on that road, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm asking the town once again to look into providing or putting in 2 to 3 roundabouts on Glen Eagle, the portion that's developed, in areas that won't affect any residential property, which meaning by Transcontinental, also by Kettle Valley, because I remind the board again, there is 9 school bus stops, several blind spots, and that road is an incline of greater than 3 to 6 degrees. So looking into having roundabouts there, because they're putting them on Higbee to slow traffic, put them on Glen Eagle to slow traffic, that's already a problem. Roundabouts cost very little to impose. It reduces traffic by 90%, further decreasing potential accidents, and you don't have to pay salary or retirement funds for a roundabout. The police can't be up there 24/7. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kemple. Anyone else wishing to speak for public comment today? Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online wishing to speak? Okay. Steve?
So I don't really want to beat a dead horse here, but I always have a dead horse to beat. So first I want to thank the board for meeting with us, Mike Foreman and Megan Harrington as well, regarding future developments that are coming into town and what we can do as citizens to better regulate some of those uses, because it seems like we're becoming a truck stop town, which is concerning. We've got 2 more truck stops on the books, one outside of the town limits, but there's really basically in Monument. So we're going to be up to 5 truck stops now, and potentially more distribution centers coming. I don't know how best to regulate that. We've been working, and I appreciate that, on trying to come up with some design standards and other things, but it seems like this is moving quicker than I anticipated for sure. So, and the community seems to be really clear about keeping semi-traffic use off of Old Denver Highway in particular. And there is a tremendous amount of people in town that are very motivated to not see that happen. So I know that we've talked a little bit about moratoriums, and moratoriums are just not generally a good idea. But we need to get this message into the development community that I understand they have rights and the citizens have rights and we have rights together on all this. But if we can either put together conditional uses or design standards that regulate these uses without taking away property rights and do it quickly, I'm just afraid we're going to be too far down the road and we won't be able to turn back. And quite frankly, all this is happening on the west side of town, and the west side feels underrepresented because of it. And we don't want to see this turn into a giant industrial park. So I'm not really asking for anything other than to put your heads together and try to figure out how we can do this quicker so that we're not chasing our tail and we don't have public hearings with 1,000 people showing up at every one of them. So that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yeah, thank you for hearing me out. I'm feeling compelled again. I want to say personally, from a supervisor standpoint, thank you all for your consideration on the pay adjustments for staff here. And I also just wanted to thank you on behalf of staff. I know that for the public works crew, this is a big issue, and I don't envy any of you. I know that's a tough decision to make. So thank you all for considering that.
Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to item 8, board authorization items, drafting a resolution. I believe this is in reference to some resolutions that members of the board have shared, and the last I saw was a proposal of kind of a combination of the two of those from Trustee Schoening. Is there any comments on that, or how would we like to move forward on that?
I would just like to say, I think we're all running in the same direction. I've had several conversations with Mr. Foreman and I think we're all looking to do the same thing, which is to protect our citizens from unconstitutional mandates that are coming our way, from some of the craziness from these COVID mandates, and make sure that their constitutional rights stay intact. In doing so, Trustee Stevens wrote an excellent resolution. Trustee Clark wrote a resolution. What I did was I tried to take the two and combine them and use some language from some other areas. But in looking at this further tonight, I believe what we need to do is at the next meeting, the next regular meeting, have a workshop where we craft this exact language to protect our citizens from these mandates and vote that same day, because there definitely are some things coming down from the county and state and the country as a whole. So
I would be open to a workshop so that the board can discuss these items. The one thing I noticed in some of these resolutions is I don't think we need to be overly redundant, and do we need to decide that a resolution supersedes a previous resolution we've done? So I think those items would be good in a workshop discussion at another meeting. Other comments from the board?
Mayor Wilson, I do have a comment in that, does the sanctuary status, is that a larger umbrella that covers more things more items than just the, not to minimize it, but it's important, the vaccine mandate and the vaccine passport requirement? If we call, this isn't something to answer right now. This is just thinking about this going forward with Mr. Rivera and what his input might be as far as what is under the umbrella of a sanctuary status versus calling out the passport and the vaccine mandate.
Okay, I think
I
that
would,
is something
I
we
would,
can- I think that is something to be considered, and I think I know that in the past I've had issues with that term because it is very misleading. So I think that would be something that would be a good discussion item in a meeting.
I'd like to add another one to that too, and have Mr. Rivera and talk to him about suing the state of California for blocking and cutting off supply line as an act of war and denying us for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and causing lack and supply and demand problems as well.
Can I add to that? In that I think it also might be the state of Washington and also Oregon as well that are part of
Let's
that.
sue them all.
So we have a lot to look at in the next 2 weeks.
Well, I prefer to break it out, and if you want to separate sweeping.
I do think those two need to be separate. Yeah.
I did not want them together. I said, but we
Yeah.
could use the same workshop for two resolutions.
Right.
That's what I meant very
Right.
clearly. They need to be separate.
yes, and I would like to say
Yes.
that I really feel that New York, which is a very, very difficult state, undergoing an extreme duress on many different levels, was able to have one of their counties become a Constitution and Bill of Rights county, and it has been highly effective at stemming the unconstitutional mandates coming their way. I believe there were 2 other states that have done the same, several counties in each, and I think it will afford us the maximum protection possible and not just address one issue or 2 issues, but there are so many more that are going to be coming very rapidly. And I would rather see us act preemptively now before those come down and cause our citizens great harm. So I think a
So-
workshop is a great
agree.
idea.
Okay. Is there, so we will look to put a workshop together for that. Is there any other board authorization items?
I'd like to make a comment about the workshop. Since we've seen several attempts to create resolutions and or ordinances, despite what a resolution may mean and the teeth that it has, I will not entertain any language that is not presented by a credentialed con law practicing attorney to support staff. I will not put my name on something that does not have actual teeth from a legal perspective. Instead of this nonsense that's floating around from county to county about how municipality is fringing on the rights of people who don't even live in our town. I think this whole thing is an exercise in nonsense. So either bring the people who are crafting these supposed constitutional attorneys, or don't bring it, because nobody here on this board is a constitutional attorney. One that's passed the bar, one that practices it for a living and defends the Constitution.
Well, that's why I would like to make sure we do the resolution enough time before the meeting so that it can be reviewed by our attorney. And then we can have those kinds of things ironed out. And if something is inaccurate or wrong, then I would like to see if we could get those things corrected in advance. But I also think it's important for us to let our businesses know in the area of, like, for the vaccine. That's why I think we need to make each of these separate resolutions. If there are multiple topics, that's fine, but they need to be separate. Our businesses need to know that when Congress passed the law to protect the pharmaceutical companies against liability, that did not include businesses. So if a business does a mandate, then it can put that business at risk if someone gets sick as a result of that mandate. So I think those are things we need to communicate in our resolutions, and we need to keep them separate so they don't get conflated into, I know there are a lot of things happening here, but I think we need to be single and focused on each, and I'm open to multiple resolutions if we need to.
I think that's a great idea too. Multiple resolutions is a great option. I do have a suggestion based on Trustee LaKind's statement. Perhaps it would behoove us to get an equitable constitutional attorney to attend our workshop.
Maybe we could find $40,000 in the budget.
I don't think it will take 40,000, but if that's the case, then constitutional attorneys usually charge the victimizer for their fees, not the victims. So I'm just wondering if a constitutional attorney being present to answer questions and develop the language with us might be a really great time saver and put us all on an equal footing and understanding with someone we all agreed to bring in.
I think at this point, we're getting into workshop stuff. I think we move forward with the workshop concept and go from there. I think this is all great discussion, but I'm all for having a workshop.
I agree with that. Could we start the next regular meeting early then and do the workshop before the meeting? Because I believe this is going to take a lot of discussion.
I believe we could. I mean, if we started our next meeting at 5:30, would the board be open to that?
Yes.
On December 6th,
That's to remain discussed,
it's going to,
which will be a later item.
yeah, I would suggest that we do this in January if possible. Give staff more time to work on this and our attorney more time to work on this. I would like to really focus on the budget in December, on the December 6th, because tonight a question came up. We didn't have the capability to answer that, and we're going to have to postpone. I don't want to have to postpone December 6th.
I see this more as a discussion amongst the board on what direction we want to go and what we pursue, and not being any sort of anything for staff to have to do. Board in agreement with seeing it that way.
I'll just.
I
note
agree.
my
So in
defense
other words,
that I
the
think we
legal
should wait till
work-
2022.
So, Mr. Mayor, the legal work wouldn't really happen until, the nuts and bolts of it wouldn't happen until January.
Just guessing by the items that have been brought up just this evening, I don't think we have the ability to address all those items expediently without clarifying each one prior.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and are there any other board authorizations outside of that item?
I wanted to bring something up that I spoke with our town manager about regarding language moving forward with holidays and things like that, but also just language in general. I was appointed on September 7th, and I actually was excited to pick up my business cards and then learned on the town website that we were closed for Indigenous Peoples Day, which, while that's not all that out of the question, it did concern me because I feel like we went from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day without any real discussion, and that is sort of a progressive term that we see. And those things are important that we have open discussions about if we're going to do that. Next it could be East, it could be Christmas, it could be whatever, or the use of specific language on our website that is of progressive nature. So I don't know what the solution is there. And I want to be very clear that this was no one's fault. It was an honest oversight done with the best of intentions. It was just a conversation staff had and move forward. But for me, moving forward as a part of this elected board, I think that's a really important issue to consider. And I would like to think that next year, we're more deliberate in the language that we're using to preserve the way that we are moving forward as a town. Thanks.
Okay. To continue with board authorization items, since we are discussing a workshop, I am not available December 6th for our meeting. The board can move forward with that meeting without me. I would assume that would include the workshop, or we could cancel the meeting and create a special meeting. I'm open to any suggestions you guys may have on that topic.
I think given the nature of the next meeting and the amount of topics we have to cover, including the budget, that we should make an exception to, or we should cancel that meeting and have it move.
What date do you think would be more acceptable to you, Mayor Wilson?
My only issue is I'm not available on December 6th, so December 7th is fine with me.
It's fine for me.
That works for me.
Yep.
Okay. Ms. Hogan, will you make the necessary arrangements to cancel the December 6th meeting and this is direction, Mr. Foreman, to create a special meeting for December 7th.
I'll make it happen.
Okay, if there are no other board authorization items, we will move to item number 9, town manager report. Mr. Foreman, do you have any additional comments on your town manager report?
No, presented it to the board. Just entertain any questions that you have on the town manager's report.
Am I to understand we are moving this to a annual and semi-annual report?
Yes, that's what I'd like to do going forward.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
If we have additional information needs, we can address
provide
them in
it
a
for you at
meeting.
any time.
Board of Trustee comments on the town manager report.
I look forward to reading them. Now I'm going to be short twice a year.
Okay, Board of Trustee comments. Do we have any Board of Trustee comments? Item 10. Seeing none, we'll move to item 11. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.